I'm really laughing at myself. This is the second time in as many days that I failed to go through my checklist. I didn't turn on the mic. I did my whole brilliant teaching, 33 minutes of teaching, and only to find out that I hadn't turned on the mic. So this is an opportunity. When this happened the last time, and I'm knock on wood that it won't happen again, but who knows? It seems to be whenever I get really focused, get excited or get really focused about what today's sharing is about, that these things occur. Simple checklist, right on I can see the microphone's working now. But anyway, let's begin again. Last time I talked about the mind dissolving into awareness. And this is ultimately what happens to the mind. And as you know, recently I've really been on this mind. It was motivated by a 30 years apparent failure in my Rinzai Zen tradition to silence the mind. I just couldn't do it. It just wasn't doable for me. And that precludes, obviously, that I didn't believe that, I didn't think that others were successful where I failed. I saw it as first I saw it as a shortcoming, then I was a little more forgiving to myself, a little kinder to myself, and said, well, maybe I'm just not on the right avenue. And I want to share a little bit about how I ended up in Rinzai Zen as opposed to Chan, the Chinese Zen that Bodhidharma introduced after he arrived in China from India, the first patriarch of Chan. And the Chan tradition, the Chan teachings migrated, as did many other elements from the Chinese society, migrated through Korea to land into Japan. And Japan, the land of the rising sun, always had a deep attraction for me. I loved the aesthetics. I loved Chadao, the discipline. I loved the idea of the samurai with his balance of Chadao, Ikebana, flower arrangement, and a martial arts discipline, the rounding and the filling out of what an adept, what a master is. It's the master, the mind, master the emotions, and master the body. And Zen aesthetics, the Zen gardens, the simplicity, as coming from overwhelming chaos. My mind, my natural state of my mind was chaos, and so that created this longing for order, and to see that order was through discipline. Order was made possible through tenacity, to sticking to it. And then I started to look at Zen to see in the Japanese expression, to see, and I saw Soto Zen and Rinzai Zen. And it's really funny, as I took a look, I said, okay, which is more suitable? And I was looking for pretty obvious, maybe you might even call them superficial, but I think the superficial can represent the fundamental, can't it? And Soto Zen was you would sit in meditation in a circle, but you would face out, face the walls. You wouldn't look across. Rinzai Zen, the circle was looking inward, where you could make possible eye contact with those across from you. The sense of sharing compared to more of an isolation. And I was already isolated by nature, so the idea appealed to me of sharing. So I liked the intimacy of facing inward. And also, allegorically, it seemed to me that I looked outward for answers to my myriad of questions and never been satisfied because of doubt, because of not finding authority that I didn't doubt, whether it's my own mind, whether it's my teachers, whether, you name it, whether it's my society. Doubt. I doubt that. Doubt was first and foremost. I went into doubt and looked and searched and sat on and meditated to sort out what was useful to me, what might appear to be so to me at any given time. So, facing inward in the simple circle stressed to me that the answer, since I've exhausted the outside, I've exhausted any search for reliable authority, looking for authority, looking for answers, come within. So this was my, pretty maybe superficial. The next thing was enlightenment. Soto Zen, as I understand it, and don't claim to be very familiar with Soto Zen tradition, but from what I've read and gathered and have been led to understand, is that enlightenment is instantaneous. They believe in instant enlightenment, where Rinzai Zen talked about progressive, gradual awakening, step by step by step. And the vision I had of my spiritual quest, my spiritual journey, was stepping stones, step by step by step, one leading to the next. Forgetting, very seldom catching a glimpse of the stones in the distance, but focusing on the next one, and then taking time to experience the next one. And just experience the journey as it progresses. So, gradual enlightenment, progressive enlightenment seemed more obtainable, seemed more likely that with my path, because I had a sense that this path was long and steep, fraught with challenges, fraught with difficulties, fraught with doubt, but seeking clarity. And I think this was my motivation from the very beginning, to seek clarity. And as I understood, or maybe as I misunderstood Rinzai Zen, as the case may be, I saw that they practiced to quiet, still, and ultimately silence the mind, and then clarity was the reward. So that appealed to me, the reward of clarity. But after 30 years of really rigorous discipline, I was taught in the Rinzai tradition that meditation was like a battle. If you didn't sweat during meditation, you weren't working hard enough. And this was counterintuitive, and I never really liked it, but I attempted. I tried to play the game. But the silencing the mind was not only elusive, it was impossible. At a certain point, I just gave up and I said, I give up. And I went back to look at some traditions that I had started. Everything is full circle after all. I'd started with Hinduism, and I learned about the 4 yogic paths, bhakti, devotional, karma through doing, through the physical, jhana through the mind, and raja or kriya from channeling the energies, directing, learning how to control the chi, the energies in your body. The chakras, the 112 physical chakras, wheels, and the 2 chakras, totaling 114, 2 chakras outside of the body that can't be reached, that can't be experienced on the physical level. It's only when you complete the first 112 chakras, when you're in touch with the first 112, that the other 2 come automatically. And as much in my spiritual search seems to be that things came of their own timing and will. Nothing about desire, striving, attempting, working, discipline, none of that worked. So going back and taking a look, and then the synthesis of the 4 yogas into Vedanta, the non-dualism, from a dualism, Atman, Brahman, to seeing that Atman was nothing but a part of Brahman instead of Brahman here and Atman there. That's the duality. But reconciling those conundrum, the puzzle of duality. And in this process, somewhere along the line, I was gifted, and it's always a gift. Whether you recognize that, you think it's an accomplishment, it's never an accomplishment on a personal level, for certainly. It's always consequential. It's a gift. It was bestowed upon you. Actually, what is bestowed is the understanding that was always there, that there was no separation. It was your own limitations that were keeping you from enjoying the fruits of life. To flower so that fruit could come. To seed, grow, flower, be rewarded with the fruit, being gifted with the fruit. So in this process, I was gifted with equanimity. All of a sudden, I noticed that the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, the dysthymia that I'd always suffered from, the mild extended depression, the ups and downs, which are nothing else but the rhythm of life. And I think that the depression comes from anxiety, non-acceptance of some fear of loss of control. Anyways, dysthymia is a long extended. So I wasn't on a really manic up and down. I was on the long haul. Maybe 2 years between a low and a high. Instead of instant or daily or whatever, a manic, depressive conjures. Because that's all it is. It's a conjure, isn't it? But equanimity was gifted to me, and when I noticed that this was becoming a plateau, that I was on an even keel, that I was able to accept what life, the challenges that life presented as they presented themselves, without judgment, without identity. So equanimity. And then I thought, oh, okay, really, since equanimity came to me, was gifted to me as a I could see some causal effect. I said, well, perhaps I created the possibility that I could be gifted, that I did the work. And the reward was equanimity, which I could have found, like everything else, much earlier. But this understanding about duality and non-duality included the concerns I had between the difference between Soto and Renzai Zen in terms of enlightenment. Soto, instant enlightenment, which may take years. I've read further and said, instant enlightenment may take years, but when it happens, it's spontaneous. And Renzai Zen, it's accumulation. It's progressive. And then all of a sudden, you realize that you're awake. Well, in the process of reconciling dualities into the fact that it's a non-dual world, instant gratification, instant enlightenment, and progressive, gradual enlightenment are the same, one and the same. Okay, so here I'm sitting on equanimity and enjoying it, practicing. You've got to continually practice. You see the emotions come and go. You start to learn that, well, physically you have to keep your body healthy. And I did that through exercise, bike riding, swimming. Mentally, you have to keep yourself healthy, and for me it was this understanding, trying to deal with the mind, having the mind as an ally, an assistant, if you will, instead of being a slave to the mind. So I recognized the fact that it was impossible for me. I wasn't successful in silencing the mind. And I let it go. Just like the pursuit of awakening, the desire to experience awakening. At some point, I let go, and I couldn't have had a better example than the Buddha himself, which is what he says transgressed for him. He wasn't awake, aware, enlightened until he gave up. But he did try everything. You just can't give up in the beginning. He did try everything. And he must have come to the point that I did with my failure with Renzai Zen to silence the mind. He must have come to the point where he said, well, these aren't working. I don't know what can work. In fact, I've tried so hard, the best I can do is just give up. And it's giving up the trying. It's giving up the striving. It's giving up the desire that will begin to create a possibility. So the last lesson I talked about, it's not a lesson, it's just a sharing. The last sharing I did was when the mind dissolves. What happens? The mind dissolves into awareness. And so I got to a state where I said, okay, I felt the mind dissolve. I thought, okay. So it had served its purpose of gathering, sorting, filing, storing, and ultimate accessing information into synthesizing into knowledge and mining the golden nuggets of wisdom from the synthesis. But I was gifted, as I said, with equanimity, and I thought clarity might be a gift too. And when I said I gave up, I really put it on the back shelf, and I said, okay, clarity doesn't seem a state of mind, It doesn't seem to be something that I can experience right now, but put it back. Put it on the back shelf. More or less satisfied, very, very satisfied, very, very happy with equanimity, the gift that I received from giving up, being able to reconsider, to adapt, to go back or go forward, but just don't stay the same. Try something different. And that led me to a synthesis, to uniting. And this is the awakening. That's a very good way to explain when the mind dissolves into awareness, when awareness becomes all there is. A mind symbolizes separation and division. Because it is an expression of what we call a unique self. So recently, in these last 2 weeks, I've been sharing with you this journey that I've been on, this re-examination of my failure to attain clarity. Why was this so elusive when other things came, when others were gifted to me? Why was clarity still elusive? I'd learned to be at ease with the monkey mind. I'd learned to utilize the finer mind. But I certainly was not able to turn it on and off. It was always on. The lights were always on. Couldn't turn off the light of the mind. And not only couldn't I turn it off, but again to see that the paradox of trying to turn off your mind. Why are you given this great gift and then you have to... why are we not just born like a vegetable? We don't have to consider, we don't have to think. Why are we given this mind? Why are we gifted with this mind? Only to disregard it. Even, in a sense, destroy it by silencing it. And yesterday I came to the awareness that, okay, never mind about the mind. It just dissolved into the cosmic consciousness. Just dissolved. Forget it, ignore it, it's gone. I've learned how to utilize certain aspects of the mind. I've learned that not to be distracted, certainly never to listen to the mind for any source of authority. My mind only, when you let your mind run wild, it only propagates, it only supports, it only props up the ego, which you learn to see is all illusion. So it's easy to dismiss the mind along with the illusion, but that question came up again and again. Why are we given this mind? So seeking a purpose, seeking a use, seeking to make it an ally, a tool, rather than an adversary, an enemy. So then yesterday, put it to rest. Say, okay. My mind is dissolved into awareness. So, finish. And I thought, okay, if this is a milestone, if this is indeed a valid observation of an experience, then consequentially, I should be rewarded with clarity, just as I was rewarded with equanimity when learning to be willing to not be dogmatic, to be flexible, to be at ease at any given moment. And this is equanimity, no matter what's going on in front of you. This is detachment from consequences, from rewards, from it runs the gamut. So, yesterday, well, today was another day. Today was a new day. I got up and prepared myself, did my meditation, listened to my inspirational music, mindfully prepared my breakfast, took care of my kitties, watered the plants, came to sit at the computer, and here is a video by 7-minute video by Sadhguru. And of the two people that I have an affinity with, Adyashanti and Sadhguru, and I listened to both of their videos. I had a chance 20 years ago to actually sit with Adyashanti in an intimate gathering when he was just beginning his Dharma, his teachings, but very early, in the first year perhaps. And then because of the internet, I gradually became more aware of Sadhguru, and the more I listened, the more what he said resonated with me, the more wisdom that I saw that he shared. So today, I saw a video, and it was about somebody asked about the mind. It was a 7-minute talk about the mind, and they were talking about control or silence. And what he said, the words that he said were so appropriate for me, so liberating. He said, if you're trying to stop your mind, you can try for 1,000,000 years, but it's not going to happen. Emphatically, he said, it's not going to happen. Well, I tried for 30 years, so I felt like, well, maybe I'm ahead of the game. I didn't have to waste the balance of those years to hear his words. But, part of me instantly thought, wow, I didn't find this much earlier in the game. And I looked, this sharing was dated 2012, so couldn't have saved too much time. But it's going through the process. I wouldn't have been able to be where I am today without the experience of yesterday. The efforts of yesterday. The striving for enlightenment, the discipline, the effort that I put in, the desire to be enlightened, had to be, as Buddha said, had to give up. I tried everything, said, okay, I give up. It's not that you gave up the pursuit, it's that you gave up the trying. Not that you gave up the goal, you gave up pursuing the goal. So here I am, my mind dissolved into awareness. So, okay, finish with the mind. Case closed. The last 2 weeks of pondering had pinnacled with this experience, or so I thought. And then I'm sharing with you this Sadhguru videotape, his teaching. Then he gave the reason why in 1,000,000 years you're not going to, that trying to stop your mind will never be successful. And the reason is now he gives the reason. Because you are identified with things you are not. So I'd already accepted that the maya of the ego, the maya of duality, resolved it with non-duality, resolved it with the experience of the unification of the spirit, the cosmic song, the cosmic experience, the cosmic consciousness. So now he's told me he's echoed my own personal experience, 30 years of trying. He's talking about 1,000,000. Now, to be identified with what you're not. So I said, okay, I got it. I know what I am, and that excludes what I'm not. Then he takes it. Now he said, okay, so you have to stop identifying with what you're not. Now he tells you how to do it. If you take away any wrong identification, your mind will become like a mirror. Not saying anything, this is the silence. Not saying anything, achieving the silence. The mirror doesn't say anything. It just reflects everything. So I said, wow. Wow, thank you, Sadhguru. Your wisdom hit home yet again. Okay, so now he tells you, the next step is, he tells you how to distance. You create a distance, and this for me was not taking my mind seriously, recognizing as a non-authority for, it's never had an answer to a question that was useful. So I created this distance, okay? Created a distance from the mind. I didn't take it seriously. I found a way to make it an ally instead of an enemy. I was distancing. I wasn't ever looking. I stopped looking for any answers from the mind whatsoever. Pretty much ignoring. This is what I call taming the mind. Okay. But it never got quiet or silence. It was always on. There was an on-off switch was always on. I couldn't turn it off. Like click, which I thought 30 years was going to just all of a sudden click. Instant gratification. That was also progressive gratification. So create this distance. Disengage by disengaging from the mind. Once you disengage from the mind, you would disengage from all identity. And remember, it was seeing identity, being identified with that which you're not. So here you go. Disengage the mind, distance the mind, then disengage the mind, and you're disengaged from all identity. Okay. Wow, I've come a long ways this morning. But the last thing he says is that your mind is here to give you clarity and penetration into life. So not only did you silence the mind, instead, your mind, the true purpose of your mind, I had found that seeking, sorting, filing, storing, and ultimate access was the pinnacle. This is the most useful. And now he tells me, he sets me on my heels. He tells me that your mind is here to give you clarity, as well as to penetrate into life. I'd use it in the second aspect, penetrate in life. But I'd never understood that the true gift of your mind was clarity. And that's when instant clarity. I've just opened my eyes to a clear world. I just learned to be a mirror that only reflects. If you look at me, you see yourself. Now I've been gifted with clarity. It'll be fun to see what I do with this gift. Thank you.